people at the front of the evacuation fell over and the ones behind couldn't see that and then piled onto them. So we've also got a crowd crush scenario. And we know from other instances, those at the bottom of the pile can suffer catastrophic injuries and may not survive. Even if you can get out this building when seconds count, you might have horrific burn injuries, and that will lead to very painful treatment, such as skin grafts, hydrotherapy, and it might be a lifelong treatment for these young people. Is absolutely horrific.
So there's no official word yet on the cause of the fire, but photos and videos show partygoers in the basement holding champagne bottles in the air close to the ceiling with sparklers attached to the tops of the bottles. One video actually shows flames spreading across the ceiling and crowds of people rushing up a flight of stairs towards the exit. Stephen Mackenzie is an independent fire and emergency planning consultant. Stephen, thanks for joining me. You've been studying some of the photos and videos from the scene. What's your initial assessment?
Yes, we've been on this tragic major fire loss incident. Our thoughts with all the victims, the families, the emergency services working on the community. We have seen a range of social media posts, clips, photographs, but unfortunately in the past 24 hours, we've seen a lot of misinformation, disinformation coming in. So let's just fact check it. It's been concluded by the federal authorities it's not an attack. It is not a terrorist incident. That's very clearly communicated. The fire led to the sounds of explosion rather than explosion leading to a fire. We strongly believe that it was a champagne bottle promotions with sparklers that set fire to the underside of the ceiling, the acoustic tiles, which should never have been installed in a basement club, with such a low ceiling in this area, in this building. And the basement area, we believe, only had one narrow stair evacuation route, whereas in the UK, anything below ground level or above ground level needs a minimum of 2 exits, depending on the nature of the occupancy. I would say for a place of assembly such as a nightclub, it should really have had 2 alternative means of escape. So if one becomes compromised or untenable, there's always an additional one. We do see quite robust footage from a number of sources of the ceiling tiles being ignited and the flaming droplets coming off that hydrocarbon plastic petrol type material dripping onto other surfaces. Once it starts going, the flame front starts moving, the hot gases in the smoke layer starts preheating surfaces adjacent to it laterally and below it, and then the droplets create other fires. A lot of the injuries we've seen is because of these molten droplets dropping onto and setting fire to people's hair, their skin, adheres like napalm, and setting fire to their clothes. Hence, we hear of over 100 victims of significant burns, plus lung damage as well. And we are seeing an international relief effort to treat those with life-changing injuries. Unfortunately, this fire, when they opened the final fire exits, it replenished the fire and it started motoring on, and it created a chimney effect. The hot gases and combustible effluent was then led into the path of those trying to evacuate. We also saw a clip where people at the front of the evacuation fell over and the ones behind couldn't see that and then piled onto them. So we've also got a crowd crush scenario. And we know from other instances, those at the bottom of the pile can suffer catastrophic injuries and may not survive. Even if you can get out this building when seconds count, you might have horrific burn injuries, and that will lead to very painful treatment, such as skin grafts, hydrotherapy, and it might be a lifelong treatment for these young people. It's absolutely horrific. Absolutely horrific.
When you're talking about acoustic tiles, these are the sort of sound-absorbing panels that look a bit like sort of synthetic egg cartons, and they seem to be all over the ceiling. Was
Yes.
this not the same cause the 2003 Rhode Island nightclub fire, where acoustic tiles were set fire to by onstage pyrotechnics? It seems extraordinary that something that flammable can be in a place like that.
Yeah, we would permit it in the UK. We put very severe restrictions on materials that we adhere to wall and ceiling surfaces because of the earlier 1981 Stardust fire in Dublin. 48 dead, 214 injured. Then, as you've mentioned, the 2003 Station Nightclub fire in Rhode Island, 100 killed, 230 injured. It was stage-level pyrotechnics that set fire to the acoustic tiling. Like I say, it's hydrocarbon derivative, it's foam material, it is plastic polymers, and it melts back like napalm and it sustains combustion. Once it gets going, you're seconds to get out of that area. And unfortunately for the revelers, we know from human behaviour that they are fixated on partying, having a good time. Then they're trying to respond to the cues of they can see something's going wrong, and then they can actually see the flame and ignition. Before they know it, the fire has got away from everybody, and then it's a dash for that stairwell and those fire exits. And those at the back of the queue, many just didn't get out. 40 fatalities reported, and there'll be a very sensitive person recovery now by the forensic fire investigation team. They will be doing it slow, they'll be doing it sure, and they'll be documenting all the evidence available from the fire scene, from the debris field, from the person's recovery, and then moving into eyewitness accounts, CCTV, witness statements, and then there'll be the for the deceased, there will be all the coroner reports and a full federal public inquiry into this one. But as you said, we have seen this time and time and time again in nightclubs, and it should not have happened. It was predictable and preventable.
So what questions should the Swiss authorities be dealing with from this?
I think what they need to do, as soon as the first emergency service call goes in, that's when the forensic timeline starts. So they need to look at the timeline. They need to look at the legislation. They need to look at the regulation for these types of premises. We all know we have a higher instance of potential of large fire loss or mass casualty events in large places assembly. Hence, many facilities are licensed to sell alcohol, and there's very careful controls put around those to protect persons under the influence. It's a slightly higher risk. So in the UK, all pubs and clubs are licensed. There's limits on the occupancy, and there are specific fire safety measures that put in place. For example, in the UK, every workplace or area occupied by the public needs to have a formal fire risk assessment, and it should be undertaken by a competent fire risk assessor. I don't believe owner-operators or persons running bars should be able to do the risk assessment by themselves. It's got to be a qualified fire engineer. Then we're going to be able to move forward into what actually happened in the event, all the lessons learned, and then we will see the decision made, depending on that evidence, in pursuit of criminal and or civil claims and prosecutions.
Stephen Mackenzie, thanks for joining me there. Stephen Mackenzie, an independent fire and emergency planning consultant.